GMS is shutting down its truck operation, and I finally addressed the SHR Ford 2311 thing. Or have already addressed it first. Let's get into it. Coming up next. What's going on, everybody? Hope you're doing good today. All right, Rajah Caruth, Grant Enfinger, and Daniel Dye will be looking for rides next season as GMS announced that this will be their last year in the truck series. Of course, Legacy Motor Club, which is owned by the same owner as GMS, or at least he's got a majority stake in that. They're switching over to Toyota, so I have to think that this has to be linked with that because I looked up Allegiant Air, which is also the company he owns, and that's where he makes his money and all that. Their stock is actually going up and up and up. So this isn't, in my opinion, a financial decision by them. I think they were just getting probably some money from Chevrolet to run trucks, and I think now with the new switch over to Toyota and all that, I guess Toyota doesn't see them running trucks as a viable option the same way that General Motors or Chevrolet did. So I think that may be playing into it somewhat. So I think that probably comes down to why they made that decision. But like I said, Rajah Caruth, Grant Enfinger, and Daniel Dye will be looking for rides next season. So going to be interesting to see if they can land somewhere, and if they do land somewhere, where that place will be. All right, somebody asked me if I was going to address the Ford 2311 Stewart Haas thing, and that's when I realized that not everybody watches the live stream, so I'm including this clip from the live stream because I've already addressed it and I don't have anything else to add. But yeah, I did address it on the live stream, but I realized not everybody watches those, which is fair enough. I understand. So here you go. Here's me addressing the Ford 2311 Stewart Haas thing. They released the big rumor. People have been talking about it, I guess, for a while, but they let the big rumor out of the bag that Ford was talking to 2311. Now, that didn't really excite me a whole lot because by the time I had seen that, I had already seen Denny Hamlin's podcast. And on Denny Hamlin's podcast, he basically came out and said that the contract is already written between him and Joe Gibbs. They're just doing their due diligence on the 2311 side, which means their due diligence, you have to listen to Ford's offer if you run a company like that for the stakeholders, because it's not just Denny Hamlin and Michael Jordan. I think other people have a piece of that as well. So you have to see what Ford offers. So what I think they're doing is they're looking at what Ford has to offer, and they're probably going to get a better deal from Toyota. They're basically using Ford as a leveraging chip to get a better deal with Toyota for 2311. But obviously, he can't sign his Joe Gibbs deal until he re-signs with Toyota, right? And re-signs the partnership between 2311 and JGR. But that's basically going to happen because he basically let the cat out of the bag. He said, the contract for Joe Gibbs Racing is already signed and sitting there. We're just waiting to do this other stuff. So I think they're using Ford as a leveraging chip. The part of that is interesting, though, is that Ford is going out there and looking for another partner, which lets me know that Ford thinks that Stewart Haas Racing is leaving, or they know that Stewart Haas Racing is leaving. Of course, that's been an open rumor for a long time. Basically, I think this stems all the way back to when Ford put the kibosh on Tony Stewart getting Kyle Larson. I think when that happened, I think from that moment on, Tony Stewart was kind of done and over with Ford. So, and then she goes on in that article to also talk about Stewart Haas Racing might sell off 2 charters. I'm not going to get into all that because I think once a rumor starts, it gets more salacious and more salacious. Gene Haas doesn't need money. Gene Haas is going to be fine. So he doesn't necessarily need to sell off 2 charters. I don't see where selling off 2 charters would help them, but I could be wrong. I've been wrong before. That's just my gut feeling on it. It's just one of those things in the racing community. When a rumor gets going, the rumor gets bigger and bigger and bigger. But it is interesting because it basically lets you know, in my opinion, that Stewart Haas Racing is leaving Ford. So the question then becomes, is Stewart Haas Racing going to Dodge, which they have been linked to? Is Stewart Haas Racing going to Chevrolet, or is Stewart Haas Racing going to another entity like Honda or somebody? And I just throw Honda in there because Honda sells their or advertises their power equipment quite often in NASCAR. So I like to throw Honda in there too because I feel like they have a good chance. And then one of my friends is like pretty high up there in the NASCAR thing. He said at NASCAR headquarters at one point, probably 2014, 2012, somewhere in there, they had a Honda Accord fully decked out. They had a Dodge Charger completely decked out, like in full whatever generation that car would have been. And they had a Volkswagen Passat. They had a Volkswagen Passat all the way decked out in like how it would look as a NASCAR race car. So I throw them in there. Now, Volkswagen pulled out. He did tell me the story about Volkswagen, which is actually why we were on that story. So when Volkswagen went through the Dieselgate, that's when Volkswagen pulled out their thoughts about entering NASCAR. But those are the big three that I've always heard about that NASCAR is trying to court and bring to the table to be the next manufacturer in NASCAR. So that's why I throw Honda in there. So that just begs that question. So that's it. All right. That's all I got for you on this one. If you made it this far, I would love to have your subscription. Hopefully I earned it. If you're already subscribed, I appreciate you guys as well. You know that. If you got a question, comment, or anything, you want to leave it down in the comment section. I try to get to as many of them as I can. And if you want to help out the channel, the merch is in the merchandise store, is in the link in the description. And other than that, thanks for your time. Peace.